When fans began burning WNBA jerseys outside arenas and flooding social media with protest hashtags, it wasn't just about losing Caitlin Clark, it was about betrayal. For years, viewers rallied behind a rising star's Clark, Sophie Cunningham Lexie, all not just for his skills, but for what they represented. A new era of charisma, crossover appeal, and global relevance. But as details emerged to the WNBA internal attempts to marginalize these players, the public outrage exploded. It wasn't as poor management, it felt personal. If you're here for the real story and not filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Fans and abandoned league. They believed the league abandoned them first, and in that disillusionment a new loyalty was born, one not tied to jerseys but to the athletes themselves. The LPGA was ready with a bold $50 million package and spotlight. Few expected to reposition Clark, Cunningham and Hull, not as rebels but as visionaries. The launch of a planned reality show, spiking ticket sales, and surging digital engagement aren't just symptoms of media savvy, they're signs of a power shift. These athletes didn't jump ship, they changed the rules. Their departures, more than a headline, it a blueprint for how modern sports must evolve or perish. In a move that already being called the biggest sports of billion, the decade, three of the lead highest profile players walked away, not another basketball league, not to media job, but to the LPGA. And that sentence sounds real. Get ready, because this story is less of a career pivot and more of a full-blown mutiny. This was quiet exit. It was a message. These women didn't just trade court for fairways, they declared that they were done playing by the WNBA rules, and based on what insiders are revealing, those rules were never built to support them in the first place. Let's start with the of covert all control. Caitlin Clark and argue be the most electric rookie year in WNBA history, record-breaking viewership, viral highlights every week, a fan base that didn't just follow her, they worshipped her. But behind the scenes the mood wasn't celebratory, it was cautious, even tense. According to internal sources, the league isn't thrilled about Clark's rising brand. They were worried not because she was underperforming, but because she was outshining everything around her. She was getting too big too fast, and for a lead build on centralized control, that was a threat. So what did the WNBA allegedly do? They tried to rein her in, limit crossover appearances, veto participation, and outside opportunities, including golf. Messaging from league offices, according to leaks, was aimed isolating Clark from the wider sports and entertainment world. The goalkeeper's success inside the WNBA bubble make sure she didn't transfer. But you can't wrap lightning in a bottle, and you definitely can't tell when most influential athlete in women's sports that she's too visible. So Clark left, and Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull live with her. This wasn't coincidence, this was coordination. These three leased industry. If the way they planned their exit in LPGA, they were ready with the WNBA fumbling its biggest asset, the LPGA pounced. They put $50 million on the table. That wasn't as a contract, it was a statement. Full autonomy, creative freedom, real market dollars, respect. Everything the WNBA allegedly refused to give, the LPGA offered immediately. And just like that, three basketball stars became the face of a golf revolution. Will happen next. The WNBA went quiet, no official apology, no ownership of the situation, just thick, uncomfortable silence followed by the predictable damage control. Leaked report, back channel, legal threats. Anonymous source is trying to paint the players as difficult or distracted. But the public wasn't buying it. Fans were furious, jerseys were burned, talks and reels exploded with commentary dragging the league for losing its most popular figure. The backlash didn't stop at social media, it hit the bottom line. Viewership dipped, engagement stalled, and the credibility, the WNBA already shaky, started the road in real time. Meanwhile, the LPGA turned his controversy into a cultural reset. Ticket sales surged, follower count jumped, and in a stroke of absolute media genius, they announced a new reality show, Fairway Rebellion, starring Clark, Cunningham and Hull, with for creative control. The show will follow their transition into golf, their training, their lives, their brand, and is already generating was bigger than any WNBA all-star promo. This isn't a pivot, the power play at sending a clear signal to every athlete watching: your league doesn't own your success, you do. That's what made the so explosive, because this isn't just about golf or basketball, it's about time. Enemy, it's about a broken system finally getting caught out publicly, loudly and unapologetically. Insiders say this move has triggered chaos inside the WNBA. Emergency meetings, PR scrambling, internal panic about who might leave next. There are even whispers of top-level resignations. and the works, because the truth is the league didn't just lose 3 players, they lost the narrative, and once you lose that, it's almost impossible to get it back. What's even more dangerous of the WNBA is how justified as exodus looks. The optics are brutal. Here are 3 players saying it was silent sideline and sabotage. Instead of confronting those accusations head on, the lead tried a spin story and hope it would go away. But it hasn't gone away, it's only grown. Because this is resonating beyond sports, it's tapping into a wider conversation about control management and a commode of occasional women athletes, about how too many organizations are still clinging to outdated models, where the league as a star and players are just props. The LPGA flipped that. They didn't see Clark, Cunningham, and Hull as liabilities, they saw them as assets, not just for ticket sales, but for media branding content. Every layer of modern sports business. They understood that athletes are now full-blown media properties, and they gave him the tools to act like it now. Clark's already seen her digital engagement. Triple sponsorship deals are flooding in. Her golf swing is trending not because it's perfect, but because she's free. Cunningham and Howe are reportedly already locked in for indoors and extensions. An LPGA event featuring the trio are selling out faster than any women's golf match in recent memory. This is a new era, and the WNBA, they're stuck. What's wild is that it didn't have to be this way. The league had momentum, they had visibility, they had her, and instead of building a dynasty around that, they try to shrink it down to something manageable. That fear of transcendence is what killed the opportunity, and now the floodgates are open. More players are poorly considering follow a path carved by Clark, Cunningham, and Hull because of formulas now proven in the league. One, invest and you find one that will. The old model, where athletes are told to sit down, be quiet, and focus on a game, is done. The new model, athletes or businesses, their voice is a revenue stream, their personality is marketable, and if you suppress that, you're not just stifling creativity, you're leaving money on the table. That's the real lesson here. This isn't as a scandal, it's a shift from top-down control to athlete for a strategy, from uniform branding to personal autonomy, from gatekeeping to open collaboration, and it's working. The LPGA is surging, the WNBA scrambling, and 3 athletes just proved you can walk away from a broken system and come out bigger than ever. If you're still watching this in trial process, how women's basketball just handed a win to women's golf, you're not alone. This isn't just about sports anymore, it's about who holds power, and for the first time in a long time, it's not the league, is the players. So if you're following the saga like the rest of us, don't go anywhere. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over. Hit that like button if you have the players on this one, and make sure you subscribe, because of more stars follow this path will be right here too. Racking every step. 3 WNBA stars and just made a career decision. They expose entire architecture, a league that wander talent but not their power, and now the house of cards it's shaking. Let's not downplay the scale fallout. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie, she was a WNBA golden goose. Her debut was one of the most watched events in league history. She moved jerseys, drove ticket sales, dominated media cycles. She brought in an entirely new generation of fans. People would never watched a WNBA game before were tuning in justice here, and instead of protecting that investment, the lead tried to cage it. We're not talking about minor disagreement here. Internal reports suggest a consistent effort to keep Clark from stepping too far outside the WNBA. A tightly managed image, crossover media appearances, denied golf invitations, allegedly vetoed even the tone of press cover, according to insiders, was quietly managed to avoid giving her too much credit, as spotlighting her would somehow eclipse everyone else. And that's where the real fear was hiding. This wasn't about fairness, it was about control. League exact sources say we're terrified of what would happen if one player became bigger than the league itself, where fans care more about Clark's journey than the league's agenda. What if she stopped needing them altogether, so they tried to cut her down before she could fly? But instead of shrinking, Clark left. And when she left, she didn't slam the door, he ripped off the hinges. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull joined her almost immediately. That's not coincidence, that's solidarity, that a statement. This isn't just about one player get mistreated, it's about a culture suppression. And the fact that multiple athletes were ready to walk the second a better offer came through tells you everything you need to know about what's been boiling under the surface. Enter the LPGA. This move wasn't as bold, it was strategic. The LPG knew exactly what they were doing. They saw three players with built-in fan bases, massive social media following, and cultural relevance. They weren't worried about the learning curve or whether Clark could break par. They were looking at engagement, influence, reach. So they made their move of $50 million promotional package for media autonomy, creative control, branding, partnerships, financial security. Not only did the LPGA match what the WNBA should have an offering, they blew it out of the water. And the players responded not with hesitation, with enthusiasm, because they weren't as looking for a paycheck, they were looking for respect, and now they found it. They're not looking back. Let's be clear, the moment this deal was announced, the sports world split into on one side outrage from WNBA fans who couldn't believe the league let this happen. On the other, a celebration from those who've been demanding better treatment for women athletes for years. And in the middle, the WNBA is scrambling to get ahead of a storm it didn't even acknowledge was coming. There's been no formal apology, no change in policy, no commitment to rethinking their approach to actually branding. Just the usual vague statements. And we wish them the best messaging. But behind closed doors, the panic is real. Reports of emergency leadership meetings, PR consultants being brought in to manage what already spiraling out of control. Even rumors of legal for it ain't trying to block future player departures. It's damage control, pure and simple. But the damage is already done, because while the WNBA fumble its biggest stars, the LPGA turned a personal decision into a movement. Ticket sale for LPGA events are reportedly shattering records, social media metrics surging past anything the WNBA has pulled in recent months. And that reality show Fairway Rebellion hasn't even aired yet. But the buzz is everywhere, and the reason this work is so simple. The LPGA agency Clark Cunningham or Hull as threats. They saw them as partners. They weren't trying to micromanage their messages or own their identities. They weren't afraid of players having opinions or building person brands. They encouraged it. And in doing so, they've created a model every other women's sports league is now gonna have to reckon with, because here's the truth. Actually, empowerment is no longer optional, is the cost of entry. And if your league can offer it someone else, well, what does moment has crystallized is a massive shift in power dynamics. For decades, athletes, especially women, were expected to just be grateful to play, grateful to be seen, grateful for scraps. Now that mindset is dead. Clark Cunningham and Hull didn't ask for more, they took it. And they brought the receipts: massive audiences, viral reach, cultural cloud. They were already doing the work. The WNBA had just failed to recognize their value. Any LPG it did. Now we are watching the WNBA crumble under the weight of its own miscalculations. And it's not just reputation, or there's talk of financial instability. Top-tier sponsors quietly reconsidering their deals, fan trust eroding with every PR misstep, and still no clear answer on how to lead plans recover. Meanwhile, the LPGA is thriving not just because they brought new talent, but because they brought in a new model, one where athletes aren't as contributors, but collaborators, one where media and filtered, but fueled, one where branding is personal, powerful, and profitable. And you know what? It's working. Clark's fan base didn't disappear when she left basketball. It followed her to the golf course. Cunningham's and Hull's social numbers are climbing. Clips of them training for golf are already going viral. The crossover isn't just working, it's dominating. And now the real question isn't why did they leave, it's who's leaving next. Because this isn't isolated. Other WNBA players are watching, collegiate stars are watching, agents are watching. They're seeing that it is possible to walk away from a system that doesn't serve you and to thrive without it. Was wild is how avoidable all of this was. The WNBA had every opportunity to lead the next era of women's sports. They had a platform, they had the talent, they had momentum. But instead of embracing star power, they tried to contain it. Instead of empowering players, they enforced control. And now they're watching the future walk away with golf bags. This isn't as a failure of leadership and a failure vision, because any league that sees outspoken, media-savvy, brand-building athlete as a threat, instead an ass, is already dead in water. What Clark Cunningham and Hull are done isn't just smart, it's historic. They redefine what it means to be a pro athlete in the 2020s. They don't need permission to build their careers. They own them. And that's the shift, that's the lesson, that the new standard. So have you been watching his unravel and wondering if this is the beginning of it? And for WNBA, as we know, you're not wrong. If they don't adapt fast, they will be remembered not for growing again, but for shrinking the stars who could have saved it. and of more athletes to sidewalk that might be the final blow. This is a crisis moment for the debris when one of their biggest stars just walked away at the height of her fame and took to rising names with her, and instead of addressing the issue with honesty or accountability, the league has gone radio silent. But silence speaks of volumes, and right now the message being heard loud as is this: the WNBA is more afraid of losing control than it is of losing talent. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the player, she was the event. Her games were spectacles, packed arenas, record-breaking TV ratings, non-stop coverage. Yet, she had to cross over potential that leagues dream of, and yet, when it came time support her brand, the letter expand, the WNBA, a blink, they were scared of are becoming bigger than the lead, scared of letting a player set the pace, so they try to hold her back. They wanted her game, but not her go. Though they want her stat, but not her spotlight. And it didn't stop there. Internal report suggests there was a deliberate strategy to limit her exposure outside the league, an effort to keep her in line. Participation and LPGA events allegedly vetoed, strategic partnerships delayed or denied. That's not just mismanagement, that's sabotage. And Clark sighed. So did Sophie Cunningham. So did Lexie Hull when LPGA came knocking. Would a $50 million emotional push, media control, and full autonomy? The answer wasn't hard. They didn't hesitate. They didn't wait for permission. They left, and in doing so they exposed everything. This wasn't about loving golf more than basketball. This was about choosing freedom over fear, respect over oppression, progress over preservation. They just changed leagues. They changed the rules. The LPGA knew exactly what was doing. This wasn't a lucky break or publicity stunt. This was strategy, smart, aggressive, timely strategy. They understood what the WNBA had done, that the modern athlete is more than their sport, their brand, a platform, a movement, and those movements need space to be good. A whole show around them, a reality series with full creative control, focusing on their transition, their lives. Their media journey is not just behind the scenes look at sports, it's a full-on rebranding of women's sports storytelling, and fans are loving it. Because let's be honest, fans are tired. The Polish pre-pro move PR version of athletes. They want to see the real stories, the messy parts, the fight for autonomy, the hard choices, the moments where someone says, I'm done waiting for the lead to catch up. I'm doing my way. That's what Clark, Cunningham, and Hull just did, and that's why the story resonates so far. Beyond basketball or golf, this is about every athlete who's ever been told to stay in their lane, every woman who's been asked to be grateful for less, every brand with power that chose silence over support. The backlash against the WNBA has been brutal and entirely earned. Fans aren't just disappointed, they're fury. Yes, jerseys are being burned, players are being defended across platforms, the public is choosing sides, and the league's attempt to save face are only making things worse. Censorship, legal threats, vague interviews, none of it as rebuilding trust, because trust was never a problem. Control was. The WNBA didn't lose Clark, Cunningham, and how? Because of money. They lost them because of a refusal to evolve, a refusal to see that women's sports isn't just about the game. It's about the people playing it and the stories it brings with them. And those stories don't fit inside a press release. Athletes today don't want to be managed. They won't be partnered with. They want transparency, revenue sharing, media opportunities, brand deals, and most of all, respect. The LPGA offered all of that. The WNBA didn't. So now we are watching the consequences unfold in real time. Insiders say league officials are scrambling, emergency meetings, internal chaos, sponsorship calls, legal evaluations, potential resignations. It's a crisis of confidence at every low level, and it's only getting worse. Because the longer the WNBA stays defensive, the more players start looking around and asking, why am I still here? And that's the scariest part for the league. Because now the blueprint is out in the open. The escape plan has been drawn. 3 stars walked out, and instead of disappearing, they blew up. Their reach is growing, their influence is multiplying, and they're making more money than they ever did in the WNBA. This story isn't ending, it's spreading. More athletes are watching college PL